We are. Welcome everyone to another edition of our weekly coaching session. Unfortunately, the last 3 weeks we've had technical difficulties, so this is our third try at.
Third time's the charm.
Yep. Talking about our weekly topic, which this week is sustainability.
Yes.
So, one of our biggest concerns that people have before starting the program, when they come in for consults, during the program, as they near the end of the program, is always how do I not gain all the weight back again?
Mm-hmm.
How do I make this change a sustainable change?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they're in the middle of the program and they're like, oh, this just feels like too much.
Mm-hmm.
How do I continue? How will this continue to? How will I continue to be able to do this from a long-term perspective? So, when people are, when we're addressing, the conversation is different depending on where people are at inside each of those areas. And I'll say we've seen people who it's absolutely been sustainable.
Right.
I mean, how many people have, as we've started reaching back out and doing follow-ups, what's been some of the response of?
Right. Yeah. I've kept all my weight off. I've lost some more, and I feel great. So we get a lot of really good responses as far as just it really being more of a springboard to a lifestyle change rather than just having a beginning and an end. And I think that's where part of this conversation belongs is, diet and exercise culture has very much taught us that, there's a beginning and an end, there's a, start and a stop. And I challenge that. I feel like we very much need to divorce that culture and do things a lot differently.
So, as people come in and we start to talk to them about what the program entails and what it's like, what are some ways that people can start to, because I feel like everyone knows they should make these, if I need to lose 10 pounds, I know I should be doing things differently. And I don't necessarily, people who need to lose significantly more weight. I think we've gotten to a point where we know we can't just go back to the way things were. So, or what got us to that point. So how do we start to, we might not like it, right? It's simple, right? We talk about this. To make these changes is simple but not easy.
That's correct.
So it's simple to know that I need to eat more healthy or start to move more or get better sleep. And, it's like I see these funny videos where it's like, okay, I'm gonna really make this is the week, right? I'm gonna cold plunge and I'm gonna sauna and I'm gonna exercise every day. I'm gonna wake up at 4:30 and I'm gonna,
oh my gosh.
you just go through this entire laundry list of what culture tells us, you have to do all of these things if you really want to be healthy. And I think that's part of it, right? We just get exhausted with it's not possible.
Exactly.
It's possible, but
it's a lot of doing.
It's very it's tough realistically to do that. So how do we start to help people work through prioritizing what changes should be made, where do we start, and then how do we start to maybe stack things on top of that momentum?
I think unhooking, and I have a saying I have this, I have the shame off of you saying, because that whole should loop, we first of all have to unhook from the should loop. There's a lot of frameworks. I think there's a lot of self-deprecating communication that we really need to unhook from. And I think a lot of us need a little bit of conscious awareness around that, because I tell people you should not should all over yourself. I should do this, I should do this, I should do this. If we're continuously like saying, you know, I should do this, I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this, then we're just getting more of what we are, you know, it's just it's more of a lack in the scarcity shame cycle that we're participating in. And if you're hearing my voice right now, you probably can very much relate, because the energy around that, it just is, it's a constant loop. It constantly goes, it doesn't go anywhere, right? We can't do anything inside of that. So busting through that first of all, and you know, unhooking from I should, I need, and constantly, just because you're just getting more of what you know, what it is that, you know, you don't want, rather than getting what you do want. So making sure that, you know, I should be doing this, because the second you say that, the survival emotion that's attached to it is shame. And shame tells you that who you are is wrong, and who you are is always right. You are always right. So making sure that we actually, you know, stand back up and say, you know what? Who I am is right. Who I am is inherently good, and I want to move towards good things. I think is a more natural way to engage, right? You're coming at it from a different energy, because you can come at it from an energy of deprivation, and I have to do all this, and it's going to be hard, and you can come at it with that, but right away you're more prone to not even start before you even begin, because all those survival mechanisms are going to tell you that, you know, this is not safe, and we should step away. So being able to recognize what's going on first and foremost to get us there, great. And then from there, it's all the little baby steps towards what feels good, and what feels safe, and what feels affirming, and moving towards more of that.
Mm-hmm. And I want to kind of highlight some, you said something about feeling safe, and some things that we have just recently listened to or learned is that we want to really sit with some of those things, because as we make change, our mind and our nervous system, because it's different, because it's change, is going to tell us that that's not safe.
That it's a threat.
It's a threat.
Change is a threat to our survival.
So even if logically we know that making these changes will lead to a healthier life, more longevity,
yes,
because it's different than what we grew up with, what we're used to in our bodies, it might be anxiety, it might be, you know, shutting down. It might, you know, it might feel like a lot of different things, and, you know, be really finding ways to be able to kind of push through that.
Yes.
Because there's a lot on the other side of all of that, and that's what we, I think, get caught up in, is this maybe doesn't feel good right now, even though I know I should be doing it.
Yes.
But like, how do I balance that?
Exactly. Being able to recognize when you're on the cusp of that threshold where you are so overwhelmed and so uncomfortable, and being reminded that, you know, the level to which you feel that discomfort is the level, it is in direct proportion to the power and the change that's available to you on the other side of that. So actually just recognizing, oh my gosh, like I'm feeling pressure from every which way and I just want to quit. Like, just being able to verbalize that and be out there with it and to sit with it and not make it wrong is so powerful to begin with. Like let's not make it wrong. Let's let this have its voice, because whatever you do, it's going to be okay. It's going to be right. That's another thing, is that, we want to stay in a very unforced rhythm with things too.
And that's a lot of times where people, they'll have a day, it's almost like self-sabotage, where they'll completely just go off the rails.
Yes.
And because they're feeling, probably a ton of different heavy emotions.
Yes.
Or they're environmentally, right? They're at a wedding, or I'm at this event, or I'm at a cookout, and you want to choose to do something different. And so recognizing that choice and not beating yourself up for it.
It's so good. I love how, let me not forget the 5 thoughts that are going through my head right now, centered all around that. The first thing you reminded me of is when Kate Northrup says to use that overwhelm, to use that contraction, to use what you're feeling as an ingredient to your expansion. And I love that thought, but it is also very true that you can make whatever choice you want. You were born free. You will stay free. You can do whatever you want. It is a matter sometimes of asking yourself, what do I really want here in that moment? And then wholeheartedly, unapologetically owning it, 100%. Own it, own it, own it. And then really decide, what you want here, because you're only one choice away from making a good choice, which makes that pendulum swing of sabotage that you're talking about, because we tend to do that, right? We go from one extreme to the other. The pendulum swings all the way to the left and then all the way to the right. What we do is we say, shoot, I made this one choice at a barbecue. I might as well just swing in the other direction, right? And just, do whatever I want, right?
Yes.
which is, it doesn't have to live in that space of, it's either this, or this. It can be it can be both. I can make a choice right now to have, I don't know, what's at the barbecue? Right? Barbecue sounds so good to me right now. I've really been craving ribs and macaroni and cheese.
There you go. Mac and cheese. You got...
Right? Oh my gosh, all the good
dips.
Things. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. Okay. So in that moment, I'm choosing to have, the ribs, and yes, I'll have a bite or two of mac and cheese, but I choose to participate in that and enjoy it and own it and continue to make really significant changes to move forward in really putting my health as a priority, So I'm going to go home and I'm going to have, a beautiful salad for dinner with grilled chicken and no dips.
So those are choices.
Choices.
Yes. 100% choices. And also, not doing that is also a choice.
That's also a choice. Choosing to use what you're feeling as an ingredient to continue to expand and change and create momentum.
Right?
Huge.
Because you can look at the same decision and say, I'm actually going to choose to do something different than I normally would.
Right.
I would normally eat the ribs and the mac and cheese and all the things.
Yes.
But today I'm choosing to not do that and feel the effects and benefits of that as well.
Too.
And those are both sides of that are normal.
That's right.
And healthy.
Yes.
And
yes.
Not a problem.
Not a problem. And how you show up. It really does. How you show up to your food, even how you relate, the relationship you're in with your food, because it is a relationship. Everything's a relationship. The energy that you approach that with actually is everything. If you start some internal dialogue about, I put the ribs and I did put the macaroni and cheese on my plate, but oh my gosh, here we'll go back, right? oh my gosh, I shouldn't be doing this. Oh my gosh, I'm just gonna, everything that I've worked for up till this point, I'm gonna totally sabotage it if I do this. When you start putting your body, let's talk about that. Your body's state of survival has a biochemical reaction. So let's talk about that for a second, because what's going to happen is the second I show up at it with that, even though I like why it's so important to unapologetically own it and enjoy it is very different than eating it in frustration and already setting yourself up for this is what you should not be doing, is going to activate adrenaline and cortisol, and that's going to loop in insulin, and guess what, that's going to actually decrease gastric output, and that's going to suppress your digestive system. There's a whole biochemical reaction. When I show up to my food in an energy of love and not fear and shame and incarceration, but in love and expansion and enjoyment and pleasure, then it's going to look very different what my body chooses to do with that food, right? Also, I'm taking it out of this restrictive deprivation that really nothing can live in. It'll suffocate inside of that. So that's also super important. You never want to put yourself on the other side of an imaginary dividing line where you're trying to keep something from yourself and you're punishing yourself for it. So if the punishment is already, setting up this whole onslaught of that perfectionistic moving the goalpost spirit, that's really, it's time to start addressing that. I know that's a lot. Like I said, I had 5 things in here that I just wanted to get out.
So, as we mentioned earlier, people tend to approach or have varying degrees of this depending on where they're at. So they come in and typically they're more open to, okay, help me understand what changes we need to make. You guys have this program that has been super successful. Okay, guide me through, walk me through, what do we need to do? Where's a lot of times, when they have the first ChiroThin consultation and you're walking through, here's the program, what are the responses that, how can we, talk me through, okay, I'm sitting down, I'm seeing this, pretty significant change to what I've been doing. What's your feedback to people as they are just getting started?
When they're like, wow, this already feels contracted. I say that yes, this is definitely vastly different from what you have known. And it's important to acknowledge that. Anytime somebody goes through the food IgG blood spot test, I really turn to people and I say, we need a group. We literally need a group for this because the grief is real, right? It just is, the grief in that is really real because, just a lot of our lives are so structured and so patterned, and we're so accustomed. This is, again, we're so accustomed to things being, a certain way to some degree. We feel safe inside that. You want to talk about safe, right? We feel safe inside of that. Really venturing out to be brave enough to actually stare that down in the face and do something like that, that takes a lot of courage. So just being able to acknowledge that stepping out is really important, right? I don't want to glaze. I would never want to glaze over that. It is a change. Again, reminding ourselves that there's an excitement with change. There's an excitement with what comes to follow once we get past all of the, however many stages of grief there is and come into acceptance and then open ourselves back up to come back to ourselves. But definitely, working through a lot of that. So, and I'm always like, okay, let this be your experiment, with life and your body. Like let's look at this. Let's try this for 2 weeks, because we can do anything for 2 weeks, and then let's see how your body starts to respond to that. The feedback from the body, that could be really, that's like a whole nother level, right? It can be really, really powerful. Mm-hmm. So being able to watch what my body's capable of once I start implementing the information that I've been given, and given myself 2 weeks, what happens is we start to recognize how much pain we've actually been accommodating. Things start to cool down, the system cools down, and we become a little bit more clear. And once we start feeling the benefit of some of that kind of motivation, you need that motivation too, right? You need the pleasure motivation just as much as you need pain motivation. You need the pleasure motivation. You have to have both
to see change happening.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. You want something to work for, right? Yeah.
And then the next stage that we typically get people that are like, okay, how does this become, how is this sustainable, is, like 3/4 of the way through the program, and they're almost at their goal weight, and then they start to feel a lot of things. Number one, they don't, they're worried about what maintenance looks like.
Right.
They're also feeling the effects of like, okay, I've been like some fatigue.
Right.
It can get when you're weighing your meals and you're looking at ingredients and you've been doing that for 6 weeks. It's like, okay, am I going to have to do this forever?
I do. That is something here. Am I going to have to eat like this forever?
Right. So, what is that conversation?
That conversation is, do not grow weary in well doing. Hang in there with me, right? Because we are moving towards more intuitive eating. We're moving towards really looking into how my body's biochemistry is reacting to the food that I'm eating. And then there is a light, because we don't have to count calories and macros and portions and all that forever. I don't want you to, right? It is exhausting, after a while, right? And then, but being able to move on forward and past that is where we want everybody to be, right?
And I think it also, what's the question behind the question, right? So, am I going to have to do this forever? That's the question, but what's the real question? Why am I feeling, what am I feeling?
It's so good.
Right? Like,
what am I feeling?
What is making me ask that?
What exactly?
Am I frustrated? Am I scared? Am I, what is the real prompt there? Because it's not, we try to let people know, like, this is a program, this is a process. No, this is not how it's always going to be. So what's the real fear, underlying issue behind that?
A lot of what you were describing, I feel like separation. That's what comes to me, is a level of separation, like I'm afraid that I may be experiencing, right? Because there's a lot of dynamics involved when you start a transformative process, because you've also got the voices of everyone around you looking at what you're doing, depending on how they're feeling about where they are in their own being, in their own essence. They can project a lot, right? There could be they could be, a reflective mirror, and because they're seeing your strengths, what's reflecting back to them they might not like that feeling, right?
Or, I've lost 30 pounds. What does it say about me if I do gain that back?
Right. What does it say about if I lose these 30 pounds, but my sister doesn't? Like, or exactly.
My husband, my spouse.
Right. So what if I am thriving and everyone around me isn't? That's actually a real fear, as much as what if I lose it all and then gain it all back, right? What is that, say? I'm a failure, that I can't maintain. Oh my gosh, all of the, again, fear-based. It's really important to allow your fear to have a seat at the table. It deserves a seat at the table, and being able to talk all the way through it, let it have its voice, let it have its words, and then start to tell it the truth, right? Because that is what I love about emotions, even those survival emotions. We do not need to be hooked in to that all the time, but there's very often times where we actually need to allow it to have a voice, but also tell it the truth and work all the way through that. So that looks like, I am so afraid I took this all off, and I'm just gonna gain it all back again. I'm gonna be right back where I was, right? And being able to engage that conversation. A couple thoughts I have is, how have you evolved along the way? Like, not just in your body, but in your thoughts. What is it that you are starting to think about now that you weren't thinking about 6 weeks ago? There is too much conscious awareness and a falling back in love with yourself that a lot of times, like, we're not going to engage in some of the same patterns that we were engaging in before, because this whole self-love thing has become,
it doesn't serve me
anymore, and I would never go back. So addressing, yes, this is a fear of recurrence, but no, I'm not going back there, and I'm not going back there because I've already been there, and I didn't love that. I love this.
And your value is not attached, even if you did gain all the weight back. Right? Like,
that's a big one. That's a whole nother.
That's a huge.
We should write this down, because I think that's our next conversation. But absolutely, your identity being tied to that number on the scale, how much weight you've lost, what pant size you're wearing, what shirt size you're wearing. None of that ever belonged to outsourcing your power of supply to. We have to be really conscious about, who and what we are allowing to tell us who we are.
And something that we have kind of mentioned the first 2 times that we done this talk and that didn't work out, was the gap in the gain.
Yes.
And that's a lot of, also, I think, as we have this conversation with people about, okay, what does the future look like? What, is this a sustainable thing? What is our benchmark to begin with, right? And so The Gap in the Gain is a tremendous book. I encourage everyone to go read or listen to it. But what it talks about is so often we are tied to an ideal vision, image, picture of the way we think things should be or should look like. And anytime it doesn't match or meet that, then we're in the gap. We're not there yet. We're never going to get there. It's always going to be not the life that we thought we would have. And the problem is that as we get closer to that, it continues to move. And so understanding that, recognizing that, playing into that, let's take a look at the gain. Let's look at where we started. So instead of being focused on, this program sucked. I lost 29 pounds and I thought for sure, like, my goal was 30. Or I'm at 201 and the program didn't work because I just needed to get down to 200. Like, understanding that you've lost 19, 29, 39 pounds, 59, 99 pounds, and all those wins that you had along the way, to not be focused on those 29 pounds and just be focused on that 1 pound, like, does not serve you in any way whatsoever. So really gaining that framework of, let's look back at where I started. Yes, I may not be where I want to be yet, but am I moving in the right direction? Is, and am where I am this week, this month, this year different than what it was last week, last month, last year?
I love that.
And if it is, then I'm moving in the right direction.
That's right. It's being able to have so much gratitude for, and it did blow me away, that book, when he talks about you have to actually work backwards, not forward. And what he means by that is really where I am right now and work backwards. So if I've lost 10 pounds and here I am at that 10-pound mark, work backwards from where I started, right? Rather than actually looking forward to how much further I have to go and how far distant out in the horizon that feels, because it can feel really unattainable. But if I can just start to create a pretty significant amount of energy based off of where I am today and where I actually was last week, weight aside, maybe I decrease my blood pressure meds a little bit. Weight aside, I'm sleeping a lot better. Weight aside, I'm having a lot less stomach issues right now. Weight aside, I actually did get back into my jeans, or I've been in my jeans. They just aren't, quite, they're a lot easier to button right now, but all the wins.
And we see this on the, I see this on the, like, functional and chiropractic side too, right? It's been 4 visits, and I think it's a little easier for some people, because it's like, yeah, I still have these pains or these problems, or I'm still feeling this, but recognizing I'm able to sleep better, I'm able to go from sitting to standing without any pain, I'm walking again.
Right.
Also keeping that in mind, because again, it's most of the time people have had these issues for such a long time.
Right.
It is not going to be a quick fix.
No.
Like, sometimes it is, but that's not the majority.
No.
And we don't want to set people up to believe that that's the way it should be, because it's taken time. There's laws that are in place, right? Like, you've had physical damage, you've had years of degeneration in a lot of cases, years of walking incorrectly. That's not going to happen overnight. Like, and it doesn't make sense that it should.
Right.
But I can look at, okay, I know this is a process. I know that, I can now go to the gym and move, where before I was afraid to.
Right. Or it didn't even cross my mind today when I got in and out of the car. I was able to get in and out. It didn't cross my mind.
I'm not taking 8 Advil a day.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Like, that's huge.
That's huge.
Yeah. So your homework is to really take a look at what you've been focused on. Are you focused more on the gap where you're still lacking, where you're not at? And if so, how can you start to take a look at the gain? So I would encourage you to go grab that book. Otherwise, just just sit down today and write down 3 things that you're grateful for, that maybe a year, 2 years, 5 years you were not able to do, because there's something there.
Right. And be as specific and detailed as you can be.
And it may not be where you want to be, but that's also a catalyst to continue making improvements and changes. Perfect. So next week we're going to be doing another coaching session on probably, what did we say?
We want to talk about
value.
Internal versus external source of supply and power. Value, identity, really just digging into it.
Perfect. So if you have any questions about this episode, or you need any of the resources that we talked about, leave a comment below, or reach out to us through Body Site or the office. Otherwise, we'll see you next week.